So you know you need to add accents to your comping, but when you do, they just don't come out clearly no matter how hard you try to whip the stick. If this is happening to you, it's because you don't have a clear foundation for the Moeller technique. So in this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step method to learn the Moeller technique so that you can start playing clear accents with your left hand, just like Philly Joe. The first step to any good jazz study is checking out how the masters did it. So we're going to check out how Philly Joe Jones uses accents in his comping on Potluck with Wynton Kelly from his album Kelly at Midnight. Let's check it out. That's pretty killing. So a bunch of things that you're hearing, this is standard Philly Joe Jones. There's a very big difference between his accents and his taps, and he makes his accents sound really harsh. Right? Now, some of these phrases are pretty hard to execute if you're just cranking your wrist. It's definitely possible. Like, for example, this phrase right here. Right? And so that's why we use the Moeller technique, because it actually allows you to get that difference between accents and taps without having to put in so much energy and crank into your wrist. So something like this. Right? You can see I'm doing this whip motion and everybody goes crazy with this whip motion. They think it looks so cool, but it makes it a lot easier for me to get the accents. It also works for bars like this bar 9, where he's playing, you know, the triplet and then the accented triplet. Right? Like that is the space of a triplet. You have to go from here to here. So the Moeller comes in really handy for these kinds of phrases. Right? So let's break down how to get into the Moeller. So I want to start out by pointing out the common mistakes that people make when they're learning Moeller. They do what everybody does when they're learning something new, which is they exaggerate it. Like when you learn to ride a bike, you steer too hard to the right, steer too hard to the left, and then eventually you learn how to make micro adjustments. And it's the same with Moeller. When everybody starts out, they do this crazy whip thing with their arm. Particularly, they go like this and they bend it too much, like. And they don't understand the basis of what really makes Moeller work. The other thing is that they try to make it all about this wrist thing, but it's really an elbow thing. It's really an arm thing. And the beauty of the Moeller is that you're getting this other fulcrum involved that makes it so that you can take a lot of pressure and muscle off of the fulcrums that we use the most often, okay? So I'm gonna break down to you how to play Moeller with a good foundation. I learned it from a couple different places, maybe a YouTube video, and then my mentor, Gary Williams, broke it down for me once. And then I also had a lesson with Ed Soph once where he broke down this Moeller technique, and I'm going to give my version of it. So I want to pay homage to Ed Soph. I probably won't teach it as good as he does. I think you can go find some resources of him doing it, but this is my take, okay? So the way to do it is to start by knowing the difference between the Moeller tap and the Moeller accent, okay? So the Moeller tap is made by the sound of lifting our fulcrum in a prep stroke, okay? So when I go like this, like I lift my elbow, it actually tilts the stick down a little tiny bit. The important thing here is I'm not lifting up my stick and playing a stroke. That would make it so I have to crank my wrist, which it gets past the point of the whole Moeller where I'm getting 2 strokes for 1. I'm just letting it fall into the head as I lift my elbow. And that's the other thing about Moeller, is that it's all about the elbow. So when I'm teaching students, I tell them to imagine that I tie a string around their elbow and then I'm pulling up on that string and everything flows from there. So if I take the sticks, put them down, and then I pull up on this elbow, it would come up and then my wrist would naturally follow suit once my elbow gets to the top. And then that's where you can see the Moeller, the sort of kind of wrist bend, the whip that everybody loves. It might get out of the frame of the camera, but I'm basically doing this once my elbow gets high enough, okay? Same thing with this arm is that I'm leading with the elbow and then the wrist follows the most natural way possible, okay? So the way to practice this is the thing that I got from Ed Soph, is to start with a molar tap where you just lift it by lifting your elbow, and then do a molar accent, which is where you let it fall all the way. It follows the range of motion until it turns over your fulcrum, and then bring it down. And you hear that really harsh sound. That's how you know you're doing molar right, is that you get that harsh sound because it's the weight of your whole arm. And that's how you get the kind of leverage with molars. You want the weight of your arm to bring the stick through. That way you're not relying on cranking your wrist for every single note. So this exercise, it goes molar tap, molar accent, right? Molar tap, molar accent. Okay, and the way to mess this up is to try to do it with your wrist like this. Right? You don't get the same weight and leverage. And when you're learning this, you want the most extreme version using your whole arm so that later, when you do a smaller motion, it's just really, really easy, okay? So you start real slow with really big, exaggerated motions like this, leading from the elbow, letting it turn over. And once you're getting a nice soft molar tap and a big, heavy molar accent, you know you're doing it right. You can speed it up a little bit. So So you see there, as I get smaller, I exaggerate the motion less, but because I started with that big motion, it stays really pure, it stays really flowing, and it's actually quite easy. At this point in the video, you're probably thinking, okay, that's great, Jameson, molar is so fun, but how do I apply it to my comping? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The way that you do it is you have to practice some common phrases and then figure out the coordination with the symbol, okay? So this is where I like to use something I call the Moeller Grid, okay? So we're gonna do two notes. We're gonna do a molar tap and a molar accent and swing it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right, so we got 1 and 3 and. 1 and 3 and. And I like to imagine that I'm doing it with my elbow like this. 1 and 3 and. 1 and 3 and. Like imagine that there's two pieces of meat, one over here and then one right here where my hip is, and I'm going. What I don't want to do is go right and do this weird thing where I'm doing it with my wrist. No, I want to go and the drum sound will happen. Right? You can still hear I have that soft molar tap and then a heavy molar accent. And then go through the permutations. So that's 1 and. Now do and 2. 1. Now you can see that one is a little skippier. What I've noticed when I'm working on this with my one-on-one students is that we actually do the prep stroke for that one on 1, and then it's kind of like halfway through it, then we do the tap, right? So it's like 1 and 2, right? So my elbow is already up. 1 and 2, and that's a lot easier. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Then just trying to go really fast with the elbow, like that's kind of hard. So I go 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2. That's gonna make a lot more sense when we start going faster and doing it with the ride. Okay. Then you go 2 and 1, 2 and 4 and 2. 4 and then you go and 3, right? 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3. Same thing there. I'm lifting on 2, then the tap and 3, right? So 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Okay. So that's the whole Moeller Grid with just the left hand. And then the real challenge, this is where the coordination comes in, is can you do that while you're playing the ride cymbal like this? Right? So that is the Moeller 2 grid, okay? Now, that is some wild coordination because we're not just lining up notes anymore. We're lining up motions, right? I'm keeping this going, keeping my accents on 2 and 4, and then I have to be able to go 2 and 4, and 2, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, right? And that's a lot more coordination than we're used to. We're used to just pointing things. And as you get more mature as a drummer, you're going to get more used to coordinating motion rather than like lining things up on a grid, because that's really fragile and that is really inconsistent and you're going to play really downstrokey. That's the beautiful thing about Moeller, is that it forces you to think about how you're moving, and so your flow is naturally going to get better. If you want the hard mode version of that Moeller grid, then try making your ride cymbal Moeller as well. I had a lesson with the great Joe LaBarbera once, and he told me that the ride cymbal is a Moeller 3. And so you can think about, cranking your elbow the same way. Now that becomes really interesting when you add your comping in there. Right? I get this, whoa, this wave going on that really makes you flow. Okay, now let's take that same coordination and let's apply it to that Philly transcription that we played earlier. And we're going to play some of those comping ideas, but with our Moeller motion. But before we do that, if you're watching this and you're thinking, Jameson, how did you transcribe that Philly stuff? Also, I don't even have the coordination to play this. Also, we're working on comping. I need some solo ideas. I keep getting lost in the form. Those are all things that you need to become a complete jazz musician, but I can't cover them all in this video. Those are things that I work on with my one-on-one students at the jazz school. If you're interested in becoming a one-on-one student, click the link in the description to apply. I only have about 5 or 6 spots left at the time of recording this video, so if you want one, apply now. Okay, let's go through these phrases and talk about how you would apply the Moeller technique to each of them, okay? This first one gives us a lot of space. This 1, 2, and 4, right? The first note is the Moeller tap, 1, 2, and 4, and then we come down on B4. So something like this. Kind of silly at that tempo, at a faster tempo though. Right? It gets a lot more flowy. Let's go on to the next ones that'll be a little bit faster. So this one, the and of 4 each time is the Moeller tap, and then the and of 1 is the Moeller accent. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 4, and 3. And this is still enough space where we probably don't need to prep before. It's not that da-dum like we heard earlier, so we can just Moeller prep, boom, right on the tap. Boom. This next one is a very common Philly phrase. You hear him play this all the time. This is a little bit tricky because you have to do a Moeller downstroke, actually. So this phrase right here. Right? So the first note, it's just an accent. So we're not going to do any Moeller. You don't need to do Moeller for one accent by itself. It actually doesn't make sense. I'm not going to go. That just slows me down. I'm just going to turn my wrist. Right? That's the first note. Now the next note, it's one of those situations where we have a really fast Moeller tap and an accent. So I'm going to start the Moeller as soon as I finish this note. So on beat 3, I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3, and that gives me enough time that I can get that tap and that accent. So I go 1, 2, and 3, and 4.
All right, we'll go faster.
Right, and you can hear that I'm still getting that strong, Philly, harsh accent that you hear him play all the time. Okay, this phrase right here, it's a little bit different because we have 3 notes in a row. We have 2 taps and then 1 accent. So this actually goes into something we call Moeller 3s, which is where you do one of these elbow pumps and get 3 notes out of it, like, right? And that's really what we're doing here. So we're going to prep on the first note and play both of the notes on the way up. So we're going to go elbow out on the and of 3 and 4 and then come back in to the last note. So and 4 and 4 and 4, right? Let's try that with the ride cymbal. right? You can hear so silent on those taps and so harsh on the accents. That's the magic of Moeller. All right, here's that Philly phrase that everybody tries to squeak out. This guy, right? This takes some trick. This is a fast one, right? So we're gonna go just tap again. I'm not gonna lift Moeller for the 2 taps. I'm just gonna play them with my wrist. If you're playing 2 taps in a row or 2 accents in a row, no Moeller necessary, okay? I'm gonna play the 2 taps and then probably start lifting on the next beat. So beat 2, and then play that triplet on the way up and then accent on the way down. So that's how you get it really fast. He would do it all the time. Okay, this next one is what you do if you have a bunch of notes in a row, okay? So first we have this accent, no Moeller for that. And then I have a bunch of eighth notes in a row and then an accent at the end, right? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna do the Moeller elbow somewhere in those notes. Now, depending on the tempo, you could do it on beat 4 or the and a 3. For now, I think the and a 3 is gonna make the most sense for me. Let's feel it out, like, right? You heard it, you saw it rather, you don't hear the elbow. You don't hear the elbow. I don't know if I've said that sentence before. Say you don't hear the elbow in the chat. Okay, so, okay. Boom. That's how you make it so you hear that elbow. Okay, once you work through all of those and the Moeller is starting to feel more efficient, go ahead and put it all together and try to comp like Philly. There you go. If you use the Moeller technique, you'll get nice, strong accents just like Philly Joe Jones. And if you want to get some real Philly Joe Jones vocabulary, click here to watch my video about that.